So they came to us and they asked us for 13 emerging artists and wildlife artists to create artworks around the idea of this animal. So it didn't have to be, they weren't very prescriptive, they kind of threw a different penguin out at each artist, and this is what we came up with. So I'm going to pass you over to Dolores, who I think is going to show you some of the etchings and some of her work as well. No.
So, yeah, I do feel a bit of a fraud being here, not having much contact with anything seaworthy. Since I was in a tsunami 10 years ago, it would sort of put you off. But yes, I live in London. I love London. I don't get out very much. So most of my work is actually based on things around here. So I was quite surprised to get a penguin commission. What I am interested in, though, is how we react to the environment around us. So I'm a technophobe as well. You'll get the idea. I'm going to just hold up things that I do. So most of my work is based around the kind. Actually, I'll pass this around. It's wrapped, so if you've got dirty fingers, don't worry too much. I work in etching. I draw plants and things that I find around London, around the home counties. And I use a kind of paradigm that was used by explorers in the 18th and 19th century. So, you know, colonial times, people would go off and discover exotic lands, and they'd send these pictures back to geographical societies. And I'm interested in how that's still recognizable now, how we still know what a landscape looks like, how we know what it feels like. And things like the London Illustrated News are kind of, they've got parallels with the mass media of that time, the 18th century, has got parallels with the mass media of today. So Google Maps and the internet generally, and media moguls. You know, there's a similar kind of fear that we're being given information that doesn't make any sense. So mostly, I use Google Maps. I go to different places. I find caves. I find rocks. I find things that I can turn into drawings from these places. These are mock-ups of places that I've made at my house. So I got some rocks from a cave in Margate. Margate caves are really dismal. They're quite depressing. There's just teenagers doing graffiti on the walls. But I collected some rocks and I brought them back to my studio and made a maquette and drew the maquette. And likewise with the waterfall, I found the dingiest waterfall I could find near my house. And then I collected objects from that and made a maquette and drew it back in my studio. Well, no, actually I drew that in my house. That was set up in my bath. I've got a shower as well, so I was still clean. The process that I use, the etching technique, hasn't really changed since the 16th century, and it's something that was first used to reproduce information, and that's what I'm interested in, the reproduction of information, the process that's not changed. So I scratch into a metal plate, I then push that all through a press with some paper and some ink, and magically these things appear. What I like about all of that process and the tradition of it is the long history of man fighting with nature, of humankind trying to control nature and contain it. So a lot of my drawings are about places that I've been to, but about man's interaction with those places. So there's always a trace of something that happens in those places that's been caused by humankind. Although people don't often figure in my drawings, there'll be something there. So, I mean, from this, you can see I was slightly perplexed when I got asked to draw penguins. I did a bit of research into them as well. I mean, the brief was, we love penguins, they're our logo, they're really nice and friendly and look after each other, and it suited the corporation. And when I looked into them, I mean, I started off from a Disney sort of story kind of thing of penguins. I started looking into them, realized that they were all pedophiles, kidnappers, or just terrible, terrible things. But I knew that wouldn't make a very good commission. It wasn't very interesting either. So I spent a lot of time at London Zoo. The zookeepers there are lovely. And they've got a huge archive as well, a fantastic archive, which is free. Anyone can access it. If you ever want to look up Darwin's old papers or anything like that, they're all there. And the Geographical Society as well. So I got loads of interesting facts about penguins that are more suited to places like QI. I won't bore you with them. And I mean, the whole commissioning process started off from a place of fear to a place of QI facts. And then eventually I found the guy that, the penguins that I was looking at were Humboldt penguins. And the guy that discovered the Humboldt current, thank you, is an absolutely amazing guy. And I'd never heard of him before. So through this whole commissioning process, I found this amazing explorer who Darwin had called him the greatest scientific traveler who ever lived. And he was one of the first people to approach science in a holistic way. So he was looking at the land, he was looking at the geographical features, he was looking at the animals. And it was very interesting that what he was sending back and how it was interfered with on the journey and how people interacted with it, how people experienced that. So that's what I came up with at the end of the commission, was the idea of something being in the wild and then it being translated through, being sent through the scientific process, through to the geographical societies and that journey. So I don't have the finished pieces because they are at the penguin commissioning offices. But I do have the plates here that you can see. In this light, it's pretty tricky. So I did one picture, which was the penguins actually at sea, and one picture, which was them in Humboldt's library. Yeah, and I mean, it was an interesting process to be given something that you feel is completely alien to you, but then to have that sort of conversation with the client and to journey through something, trying to find something interesting. They didn't want me to just deliver a picture of a penguin. They wanted me to actually go out and make a piece of work, and very kindly I had that opportunity to discover something new. So yeah, thank you. I'll hand you over to the next.